Welcome to Cancer and Peace. My name is Sean Stewart, and I'm here with my good friend and buddy Peter Scalzo, and we are doing another episode. And we are both remote from each other. You're actually in the regular studio there with the fancy books and
Yeah.
all the learned stuff that makes you look like you're
Like I know what
smart,
I'm doing.
like you know what you're doing.
And Sean, where are you?
I am in Tulsa, Oklahoma today, and
Okay.
out visiting family, and we'll be this way for a little while. But still good that we can connect.
Yeah, great.
So we're going to continue our series, and our series has been on the miracles of Jesus, and you've picked out another one that
Yeah.
it has a lot of different important components to it. And
Mhm.
tell me a bit about why you wanted to talk about this particular miracle.
So it's the healing miracle where Jesus is traveling and 10 men cry out to him and they say, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." Why were they crying out to Jesus? Cuz they had leprosy, which as you know at that day and age was a really terrible disease to have because not only did it have the physical effects, but it also had the social, the psychological impact of you had to be ostracized from the community because it was highly contagious. It also had like religious tones to it because you were considered unclean from a religious sense, and you had to go through a purification process if the leprosy cleared up. So you were basically an outcast if you had this and disease. And so all the text says it's from Luke. Anyway, it just says that when Jesus saw them, he just said, "Go show yourselves to the priests." And the interesting thing is, as they were walking on their way, the text says they were cleansed. And I won't get into all the nuances about this right now, but so all 10 were healed. Only one came back to recognize and worship Jesus and to thank him. And so
Oh, read
there's,
just a little bit further. That last
yeah,
bit.
yeah, I know. Okay, so I'll just read it. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. So leper and Samaritan. And Jesus asked, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Rise and go. Your faith has made you well."
There
Which
you
is
go.
interesting, right? That
Yes.
phrase at the end there, because they
Yes.
were all obviously physically healed, and one came back because it was about his heart again, right? I figured you would latch on to that.
Yeah, I did. But I'll go back to the beginning too. So,
All right.
what are there's some
Okay,
really
so Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem. He's traveling along the border between Samaria and Galilee. And, Samaritans were considered half breeds because they weren't purely Jewish. And so they were considered second rate people and people that you didn't, as a Jew, you did not associate with them. And there's other instances in scripture like the Good Samaritan, and it pictures these people traveling out, making their way on a road that completely bypasses Samaria. And so there's this really realism presented in Scripture that Samaritans were, like Jesus said here, foreigners. They weren't true Jews. Um, and was there another part of the?
Yeah, here's what I wanted to hit
Yeah,
up on.
yeah. Let me
Just
see.
something that stuck out to
Here
me
it
just
is.
as I was thinking about it. And it's not so obvious in the passage. That's the reason why I want to highlight it, just to see what your thoughts are on this. And it is they were between Samaria and Galilee. And so you're
Hmm.
talking about between this half breed and full breed area, they call it.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and what sticks out to me is that these 10 men, Jesus at the end of this highlights the fact that he was a Samaritan and he came back. And there's a kind of an implication that it wasn't all Samaritans that were healed of leprosy.
Mm.
And so here's the first thing that stuck out to me was this group of men were, united by by their suffering.
Hmm.
They were united by their disease, their common thing. And so, as a Cancer and Peace podcast, there's a community of people who have been brought together and who, in their fellow suffering, have come together, and it crossed boundaries that aren't normally. So, in other words, our normal culture creates boundaries for us that our suffering, our conditions sometimes break down. And so, I'm going to bet that for you, Peter, that this is something that you recognize, is that when you have this level of suffering, and in that day, having leprosy would be very similar to having a terminal cancer diagnosis today, at that level of magnitude. And have you found that you're united in some sense to others who have had a similar journey as yours in this suffering?
Yeah, I think it's the same in the sense of something scary for people outside of it, something people outside of that world can't really relate to, and because of the connotations of suffering and death that goes along with a cancer journey, people certainly can be sympathetic and empathic. And as a cancer patient, you don't have the implications of being unclean per se from like a religious standpoint, but you do feel like I remember the feeling I had when I was diagnosed with cancer, and I went from like what I would have said back then, a normal person to a cancer patient. So
Yeah.
sort of a redefining moment of who I was at that point. And since then I've adjusted that thinking, kind of like how we do it in recovery. We don't identify ourselves with the struggle, but we, like, now I say I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I would say I struggle with cancer. It's just one of
Yeah.
those struggles, like recovery. But just like recovery, also, we come from all walks of life when we go through the doors of recovery, suffering with addiction, hurts, habits, and hangups. But yeah, I have found myself in incredible places. Cancer uh, cancer centers like Sloan Kettering, or even speaking. I was at a like a Ronald McDonald House kind of place for cancer patients down in Baltimore, Maryland, in a completely different demographic from me, right? In every respect,
Yeah.
socioeconomic, racial,
Yeah.
in every respect. But as soon as I walked in the room, I felt a sense of community. We
Yeah.
had something in common, and it didn't matter that I was this guy from like Connecticut who was an attorney. It didn't matter, and we had a common bond because we were the fellowship of the suffering. Right, we were suffering together.
Yeah, I was thinking in recovery, we have this term with the saying we say all the time, and is share your struggles with those who share your struggles. And so it's not that you need to try to separate yourself, but there's a great, we found in recovery, I know you and I have, that there's a lot of deep empathy with those who have gone through these experiences who can help you along the way. And so that's a guiding principle that I think I see in many ways. These leper colonies were they outcasts? Yes, but I'm going to bet that there was the community themselves helped themselves
Yeah.
in some ways because of that shared struggle. And I think it's just great for a cancer patient just to recognize there is a community out there who shares your struggle, who like yourself have a lot to offer to others who are going through times. And that's what this podcast is all about, is sharing that struggle and that journey. And so just encouraging people to step into that, because it's such a great sign that I see here, that just, it's not the main point of this passage, but it is interesting to me that you have Jews and Samaritans together in a shared struggle, and they're traveling together and they're looking for the same thing when they find Jesus.
Yeah, it's a great point, Sean. One that I completely passed over. That shared struggle breaks down barriers, and this is a great example of it because Jesus does single out the Samaritan and recognize, hey, 10 of you were healed, only one, the foreigner, came back. And
Yeah.
Jesus is constantly recognizing the faith of the Gentile, the foreigner, whoever it is. We've had other miracles too, where Jesus has said, "I'm just amazed at this person's heart." It's basically what he's saying.
I think this is so good, and I'm going to bet that there's two big things that are not they're a lot more obvious, but one of them is much more obvious, and that is we've talked about it so many times, and this importance of gratitude, and
Hmm.
maybe what this passage shows a little bit is how rare it is also, because it says only 1 in 10. Like if you were healed of your cancer, and you knew that you could point your finger to a moment when the person said, "Go and present yourself," and you were cleansed, how would you feel inside towards that person?
Mm. Incredibly grateful.
Yeah. Any cancer patient out here who
Hmm.
they met a person and it actually happened. It wasn't one of these healers who, were selling snake oil, so to speak, but it actually happened in this case. This practice of gratitude is so big, and his level of gratitude is what it says he threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. He didn't just come up and shake his hand and say, "Thank you, awesome job, brother, good job." He threw himself at Jesus' feet and
Hmm.
offered gratitude. And I think that speaks to a level of humility that is in that gratitude also.
Hmm. And I love the fact that Jesus asks questions that they're rhetorical. He already knows the
Yes.
answer, but he's
Yes.
like, we're not all 10 cleansed. Where are the other nine? He's just making a point with his questioning, which is something I love about the way Jesus interacts. He doesn't need to make a statement all the time. He will ask a question to get people to think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we've done entire episodes on gratitude, and there's healing power in gratitude.
Hmm.
And so it just can't be underplayed, the importance there. And Jesus took time to make it clear, that hey, this was important. That by asking that rhetorical question, Jesus is really highlighting the importance. And so, in any cancer journey, if we were to think about this, what does this particular miracle point to? It points to one, allow your affliction to draw you into community and shared struggle with each other, and then two, that overcome barriers, and then two, practicing gratitude is such an important part of an affliction journey. As things happen in your life where there's blessings, is practicing gratitude. There's healing power in that.
Yeah. Huge. I like how they were respectful in this particular case of keeping a distance between themselves and Jesus. It says they yelled, they stood at a distance.
Yeah,
I think that was because of their communicable disease that they had,
yeah, yeah,
leprosy.
yeah,
Um, but they did cry out to Jesus. They did call out to Jesus. And, I've always maintained, and I was talking with someone about this the other day, that I don't understand. I know it, people do it, but how to do a journey like this without a higher power, without a strong belief and surrender and looking to a higher power, and in my case that's Jesus. But to be able to say, God, grant me the serenity to accept those things that I can't change, but being able to put my burden on my higher power's shoulders is huge, you know?
yeah, yeah. I agree with that. Yeah, this it's just so good. I think, and that speaks to something though. We've been looking at, hey, what are the key components in this stew or whatever of healing, and this thing
Hmm.
here that the question that came to my mind is in verse 14. It says, when he saw them, he said, "Go show yourselves to the priest," and as they went, they were cleansed.
Hmm.
And I wondered in a sense as to, I know that the law said, hey, when you were healed, that you were supposed to go show yourself to the priest, and then they would certify
Hmm.
it and go through it. But it feels to me like there's something here that is it's a pattern that we've seen a little bit in the different miracles and some of the patterns that we've seen. And it was, he gave them an action step to follow.
Hmm.
And it says, as they went, they were cleansed. And I think there's been this thought about when we think about miracles is we don't do anything. We just sit on our butts and don't get me wrong. That's too much, but we we just look for the healing rain to fall on us, and we do nothing. And we've seen over and over again. We see Jesus asking people to take a step of faith, a step of action, a step of something in these miracles. And again, he tells them, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they
Yeah.
were cleansed. So he was looking for them to take action
Hmm.
in their own journeys. And you and I have talked about this. Even there's a bit of this that's in the medical journey. A little bit of part of, I think, of action even today in our modern world is to not write off, just saying, hey, I'm only going to go to faith healing and wait for the healing rain to fall. The Bible gives a practice out there that, yes, we go to the church and we ask the elders to pray, but it has steps past that. And we don't look at it as the only thing. And I think this is an important something. Is like, be encouraged that we have modern medicine and places to go. And if I look at your healing journey, Peter, yours is miraculous,
Hmm.
but it came after you were given a no hope. And then you were
Hmm.
given a, hey, something's come up that may work for your situation. It seems tailored to you. Do you want to try it? We have no idea the impact. And then that turned into the tumors are gone.
You had
Miraculous.
like less than a 1% possibility. So
All of it took a, yes,
it
yes,
still was like an impossible situation.
yes.
So
But
yeah,
all of it
so
took,
I
all of it took
yeah,
action on your part. You couldn't, you had to say, yes, I'm willing to go down this route. I'm willing to take this step. I'm willing to
right.
go have these treatments and subject myself to poking and prodding. But you could have said, I'm just done with all that.
Hmm.
I'm tired of people poking and prodding on me. I'm not willing to do that anymore. I quit. No action from me. But you didn't do that. And I'm not saying that to condemn somebody who said, hey, let me put clarity out there because I think this could be taken the wrong way. There are people who are given terminal illnesses who make a decision where they haven't been giving something. Hopefully, they may have been giving. I've thought about it. For my buddy Jack, was the what do they call it, palliative care that he
Hmm.
got? Was that worth it for him? Because it was lessening the pain, giving him a touch more lifespan, but it came at a
Hmm.
cost. You had chemo fog and some reduced intellectual ability to process things and so forth. And those are real trade-offs. And so I want to be clear that I'm not saying
Yeah,
that's right or wrong.
usually with palliative care, the cancer treatments actually stop. But in his case, did they call it palliative care to give him chemotherapy? Is that what they did?
They did, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because usually it's to stop the progression or at least
They're
slow
trying to
it down a
they were
little
trying to
bit
slow it down. They were giving
and
him
give a
length
pain
of
meds.
life,
Yeah.
but it
Hmm.
was coming at quality of life cost. That's the reason. And so
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not anybody everybody all of us get to make decisions about our life, whether we want
Right.
and how we think about it. So I'm not speaking about that. I think what we're talking about here is I have there's an opportunity that is you sense that God is asking you to call into, but you're just going, your willingness isn't there when you know that
Hmm.
God's calling you into something that's hard. And that's different from saying, hey, this is hard and I want to choose relationship over longevity maybe. That's a real choice, and no one should criticize that in my
Right.
view.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
In my
Yeah.
view. But so I'm trying to put
Hmm.
I wanted to put that out there because I know this is a cancer and peace podcast, and there's so
Yeah.
many different situations out there, and there's not condemnation here. This is all I think I'm trying to highlight is sometimes Jesus asks us to step into hard things, but to take an action step, and that's the key
Yeah. It's a
here.
good
We see
point.
that over and all, and so
Yeah.
that was the point I'm trying to make, and I think it's there. It's there over and over in so many of these miracles. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's like this crying out kind of thing because you're in a desperate place, and you heard about this Jesus guy, and you're like, we hear about all these miracles. I'm going to cry out to him, and then there was a step usually like go cleanse yourself,
Yeah.
get up, stand
Yes.
up, pick up your pallet. In
Yeah.
this case, it was go show yourself to the priest. Yeah,
Yes.
Jesus usually has this action step that usually follows, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, he's risen people from the dead, and there wasn't much of an action step. The person just kind of got up from being dead, like Lazarus or the or the widow's son in Nain, and or different places. Jairus's daughter who was risen from the dead, and so. But anyway, yeah, and I I do recognize that there are times when I agree and will support a cancer patient's decision not to receive treatment. That
Yeah.
there are those situations where um, it's a risk benefit kind of thing,
Yeah.
and like the benefit that they'll receive in maybe a few more months isn't worth the pain and suffering that they'll have to go through because their quality of life just won't be there. So the thing that they wanted to do as far as having time with loved ones, it'll be so inhibited if they receive the treatment. So
Yeah.
yeah, that just makes sense, I think. I
Yeah.
think that that's a good decision to make. One point I was going to make with this, I don't know if you were going to make this point, Sean, but just so these 10 men were on their way to the priest. They were healed physically, all of them,
Yes.
all
Yep.
10 men. One guy came back and worshiped Jesus and praised him and thanked him, gratitude. Jesus said to the one guy, rise and go. Your faith has made you well.
Yes. I
Okay.
love that.
Yes, because we're not just talking about a physical healing because they all received that. So, John, what are your thoughts on your faith has made you well? Like, what is Jesus referring to here?
Oh my goodness. To me, where this is another pattern we've seen, and I just love this. It's that we talked about the guy that was lowered through the roof, and Jesus was like, "Your sins are forgiven." And
Hmm.
then everybody's like, "What?" And Jesus focused on the main thing. And man, I think Jesus is highlighting something is like one person through gratitude and faith has found the main thing. And in our cancer journey, whatever it might be, our sickness journey and our struggle with, with affliction in our life, finding the main thing is finding Jesus and putting our faith and trust in Him.
Right.
And if you do that, you're going to walk away well, no matter the cancer journey, no matter the other healing. He wasn't focused on that at all, was he? It was your faith has made you well. He,
Yeah.
I believe, is somebody who, as a Samaritan, was going into the kingdom of God.
Yeah. And to me, again, this issue of what kind of faith are we talking about here? It wasn't just an intellectual assent. It wasn't just
Yes.
recognizing intellectually. It was a surrender and submit to what Jesus was saying because he said, "Go and show yourself." And so this man had done that, but then he recognized who had given that order, and he came back to worship and to really he threw himself, it says, at Jesus' feet and
Yeah.
thanked him. So there's that act of contrition and worship and submission, right? Surrender
Yeah.
and I've always maintained physical healing with the church, especially evangelicals, is like this huge thing. It's always talked about physical healing, and I've been doing this for 20 years, and I do ask for physical healing. I stand in the gap for folks who have cancer, and I ask Jesus for healing. I say, Abba, Daddy, I pray for physical healing. But then I put it on a shelf and I just say, okay, how does God want to transform this person's heart, really? Because that's really what the issue is. I mean, these bodies are temporary bodies, right? Shells that are going to die. All of us, like you said last time, we all have a 100% chance of dying. We're all going to die, and what lives on is the spirit, the soul, of the person. And is that person, the question for me is, do you have that kind of a personal relationship with Jesus where you can fall at his feet and worship him and thank him,
Yeah.
you know?
I think you highlighted something that's good, and as I would actually like to relook at this passage with a little more time. As we picked
I
it out
didn't
and
give
read
you
it.
much time.
No, I'm not trying. No, I'm just saying we haven't taken this deep dive, but one of the things that stuck out to me was that when they came to him, they called him Master. Master, can you cleanse us? It
Mm-hmm.
says here when this guy returned, he returned praising God.
Yeah.
And so giving
It
praise to
says
God.
in a
Yeah.
loud voice. Yeah.
Yes. And so it kind of spoke to me that he was in a different place too, because it says his faith has made you well. And so he was praising God, not just saying, Master, can you cleanse us? He was praising God and his faith had made him well. And I think this is a key piece. It's recognizing our need, like in recovery, we talk about our powerlessness, that we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could help us recover. And that power is the power of God himself. And I think that you have to testify to that. You have to have recognition. To have a relationship with God, you have to recognize him for who he is. And faith and trust and belief, these are all words that fit into relationship with him. And I think
Yeah. I mean,
we're seeing
even,
a comprehensive picture here, because they
yeah.
came recognizing him as some form of master over something, maybe just a faith healer, maybe a teacher. And this one comes back saying, I recognize you as the God, the power of the universe, who contains, that holds everything in your hand. And I think when we approach God with that level of reality in that worship, that's the kind of faith that God's calling us into in our relationship with him for
Hmm.
a spiritual healing.
Yeah. I think that's the healing that is the real miracle here, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yes, physical healing is wonderful. It's a sign and wonder of Jesus and his power. But the real, I mean, you know as well as I do, like I've been in recovery now 11 years as a leader for most of those years. And I've seen a lot of people come into recovery and leave and without healing in their lives.
Yeah.
But when I see somebody turn their life and will and heart over to Jesus, I'm in awe. I'm like, this is the most wonderful healing and miracle that I've seen is someone turning their heart over
Yeah.
to Jesus. You know, I after I experienced that where the tumors as big as a lemon melted and stuff, and I had that brand new immunotherapy product that I was using, and the doctor called it a miracle. I was at a prayer breakfast, and there was a bunch of like hundreds of people, and I did testify. I did thank Jesus in front of everyone for that miracle. I mean, I had truly been rescued from the pit.
Yeah. I think that's
So
such a great picture. And
yeah,
you said it earlier, but I'm going to just re-highlight it in a different way. But I think I mean, you did say it, is this: the death rate's 100%. 10 people were cleansed of leprosy 2,000 years ago. All 10 of them still died within a few years of that, and have been
hmm
dead for 2,000 years physically. One
hmm
person, and maybe more happened later, but one person was healed in such a way that they are in relationship with God for all of eternity. That's real peace. That's real healing, and that's what you're highlighting here. And so, I love that look and picture of this.
and Sean, that's the exclamation point on this
Yes,
episode today, and so that's it. What you just said.
love that.
Yeah,
Well, I enjoyed just talking about the passage. There's so much
yeah,
meat in these little stories here that is fun to explore. And
yeah.
I think there's a lot here for a cancer patient who's looking for peace in their life. So I think you're right. That's the exclamation point. There's three big points in the passage, but that last one, that's the explanation point.
Yep.
Can you put your trust in God, recognizing Jesus for who he is? There's real peace there.
Yep. And that's part of the healings too.
Yeah,
So you're down in 80-degree weather,
that's right.
and I don't know what the temp is here. Jack, what's the temperature here? 50s? 50s.
50s.
Yeah,
Well,
50s.
I'll be down in Texas, and it's going to be even hotter down there, I think. So
Yeah, you're going to
looking forward
visit
to it.
a mutual friend, right?
Yep, gonna visit a
Yeah,
mutual
good.
friend down there
Good.
and come back and sweaty.
All right, Sean. Well, thanks for blessing us and for being a part of this.
Love it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a bunch, Peter.
Okay.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Okay. Okay, blessings to y'all.
Blessings.